Hey Internet, hey YouTube, this is Nate. You can also call me Nathan, but please never call me Nathaniel. And welcome to my review of Octopath Traveler after playing for 5 hours. This is a 5-hour playthrough review. I'm going to talk about a lot of different aspects of the game, going to show a little bit of the gameplay, and then just give my overall opinion on the game, whether I'm going to keep playing, and so on. So let's just jump into the game. I'll talk a little bit about some of the aspects. So as I said, I'm clocking in at about exactly 5-ish hours of gameplay. So far I have unlocked 3 characters. I'm literally on the precipice of unlocking a 4th character. So I think just enough to get a feel for what the game's going to be like, get an impression about the story, get an impression about the characters, the writing, music, gameplay, and so on. So where to start? Let's start with visuals. So the game uses a very classic pixelated style for the character designs and for a lot of the environments, but it kind of has this paper 3D aesthetic as well, right? So you can see here, you have the characters are these classic 2D sprite models, but then they're overlaid in this kind of quasi 3D setup, very similar to like reminded me a lot of like Paper Mario. So if you could like mishmash that old Square Enix style of Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasies back on the SNES together with Paper Mario, this is basically the aesthetic that you would get. I think the animations are quite good. So let's just run out of the city really quick and we'll jump into a battle. And talk animations. So like these walking animations are really smooth. A lot of the animations are very expressive. So it definitely has that aesthetic of how to say, those old Final Fantasies, which, you know, given this limited sprite style, you still get a lot of emotion and a lot of clarity around the characters despite being 2D sprites. So I really like I really like the animations. I really like how smooth everything is. These particle effects also add a little bit of immersion into the game. So I think in general the art style is really, really well executed. It definitely fits that genre, all while taking a little bit of a unique spin on it. But yeah, let's jump into a battle really quick, and then we can talk kind of battle animations and battle impact. I think I have a currently a thing which makes it so that I'm less likely to get battles right now. Maybe I need to turn that off. Let's remove this really quick. Okay, so then we're talking like battle animations, right? Really, really like the visual clarity of a lot of these animations. So, you know, really clear who's attacking, what they're doing. If we do like a spell right here, really, really good particle effects. I really like all of the little things, like the movement of the enemies when they get hit by something they're weak to, the daze effects, the actual impact. So if I do, for example, you don't have any weaknesses to this guy, but let's just grab a hit on him. You see those little like knockbacks, very, very reminiscent of old style RPGs. But yeah, in general, I really like this kind of camera movement plus animation plus particle effects. I think it's really solid. Some of these bigger attacks have like much, you know, more intense animations. I like all the visual clarity around the numbers. The numbers are big. It's very easy to see what's going on. There's a lot of good visual clarity around the different icons, what they represent. So if you look down here, he just strengthened himself. I think the icons themselves indicating what different buffs and things that characters have is also very good. Let's do just another big spell effect. Yeah, so in general, I really like really a lot of the things they put into, see, big breaks, big slow motion effects. Like, it's all really, really nice. All really, really feels good. Don't know why I attacked that guy. Anyway, we'll just flee now. Get out of the fight. So again, visually, I think it's fantastic. I think I really dig the aesthetic. I think that they pulled it off really nicely, and across the board, really, really enjoy the visuals here. We're gonna again run away. So next up is music and sound. So I think the music's really good. I wouldn't say like any of the songs I've listened to are particularly memorable. They're very simple. There's, a little bit of like ramp up action when you're in battles. It's very classic turn-based RPG battle combat music. I wouldn't say anything out of the ordinary there. Some of the more emotive moments have more dramatic music. I would say a little bit melodramatic at times. I think it's sometimes a little bit over the top given the context of the story. But overall, the music I think it's pretty good. I think it's fitting. It's typically very ambient background, never really takes center stage. And again, not particularly memorable, but I think it fits just fine. I mean, even this it's nice. Nice little town music, it's a nice feel. Each town has its own unique theme, which I appreciate. I don't know that I would be able to recognize, based on a particular score or a particular piece of music, what town I'm in. But it's nice that there's a little bit of variety in the music depending on what location you're in. But as I said, the only critique I have is I feel like in some of the more emotive moments in the story, the music gets a little bit melodramatic. It's a little bit over the top. But battle music is quite good. The chill music is quite chill, and overall fits quite nicely. In terms of sounds, also quite good. You have this nice, crisp walking sound. It's not over the top. Kind of fits nicely. The attack sounds are also very good. The like spell animation sounds, I think it's all very crisp, very impactful. I like that a lot. Where I think the game's sound is not as good is in the voice acting. The voice acting is fairly wooden. I really not even any standouts. I wouldn't say it's like bad. Like it's not like, old PlayStation 1 era voice acting, but it's not anything that I would say is particularly amazing. Very, very, I don't know, kind of standard, not so exciting voice acting. And I think the writing doesn't help. The writing is very stiff. It uses this kind of old English style. So let me just get into a dialogue here.
Hey.
So yeah, it's as I said, the writing is very stiff. The humor is kind of stiff. A lot of random innuendo mixed in here or there. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm reading the innuendo out of it myself. But I don't think the writing is doing the game any favors, and I don't think the voice acting does either. But otherwise, the sound, I think, is quite good. So the sound quality of the combat, of the movement, of all of that is quite good, but then I think it let down a little bit by the voice acting and delivery, and the writing in general, I think, is quite poor. Speaking of writing, let's talk about story. So I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but basically the core story is that there are 8 different characters. They each have their own unique story path they're going on. So if I jump into the menu here, into the journal, see all 8 of them have their own story path. And if I click onto any one of them, I can get an idea about the story so far. So I'm only into chapter 1. There's going to be a full set of stories for each one of the characters. What was a little bit disappointing so far, and I don't know if this trend continues through the rest of the story, but we're really talking about 8 independent stories with very little overlap. So you have 8 unique characters going on their own adventure, and it's like the others are just kind of there. There's no impact there. No, like, even commentary on what's happening from your other characters when you're playing as a specific character. And I think that's a little bit of a letdown or a missed opportunity. Maybe it's, core to the design, and maybe as it fleshes out, there gets a little bit of crossover. But at least so far what I've played, there is almost no crossover at all. It's basically like they are silently observing, and apart from the initial dialogue when you recruit somebody, no interaction at all between these characters, which I find very strange, and I think it's a huge missed opportunity. Again, maybe this changes in the future part of the game. I get the impression that it doesn't. But then let's talk about the individual stories. How good are they? So far, the stories are very filled with tropes. I have 3 characters. One of the characters, Olberic, is a very classic knight redemption arc where a knight failed their duty, and now he's trying to overcome and get back and redeem himself for his failures. So very, very typical story. We have Tressa, who's a merchant looking to explore the world, but her parents don't really want her to go, want her to stay home. And very, again, classic trope of someone wanting to adventure out in the world. And then finally, you have this kind of Sherlock character with Cyrus. He's a professor who basically wants to investigate some things and has this kind of Sherlock-esque behavior. So very tropish. I don't know if the tropes kind of evolve into something a little bit more complicated, complex. Based on the writing so far, I think it's probably going to stay true to more simple story, which is a little bit of a letdown. I feel like if you're going to have a game that's so focused on these individual storytelling, then that storytelling needs to be pretty rock solid. And so far, nothing about these characters has been particularly captivating. If I contrast this with some classic RPG moments, so for example, when Locke goes to save Terra in Final Fantasy VI, it's like a huge epic moment where you get a huge feel for that character right from the beginning. He dives into danger to save her. Or when you meet Celis in the dungeon and she's getting beaten, obviously censored in future versions, but she's getting beaten, and then her character arc of can she trust people, can she love people despite what she's been through with the Empire. Like, it's very nuanced. This is not nuanced. I could name other ones. Chrono Trigger has similar type of nuance. Even some, I would say, not so great Final Fantasies have more nuance than what I've seen here so far. So I think a little bit of a letdown on the story side so far. Again, I'm 5 hours in. Maybe it gets better as it goes along. But my initial impression is it's very, very shallow storytelling, using just very typical tropes, not really diving deep into any particular emotions or character development or anything like that. Maybe it gets better. I hope that it does. But at least so far, this is the part that I would say has let me down the most. And it's certainly not helped by the writing, as I said. So even if you had that overall arc, the writing itself it's so focused on like being period-esque that I feel like it takes you out. It feels a little over the top, I guess. And very, very, very lacks a lot of nuance. But so I think that's probably good from a character and a story perspective. But okay, so we talked about visuals, talked about music, sound, story. Who cares? Let's talk about gameplay, right? RPGs, yeah, they're about story, but they're also about the gameplay. So what do I think about the gameplay? Well, we saw some combats earlier. Let me get back out and get into one again. And I'll explain a little bit how the combat works and my thoughts on some of the takes in comparison to other games in the genre. So again, we'll just kind of wander around, get into a fight. So, it's turn-based. And it is strictly turn-based. So if you're thinking about like some of the modern takes where character order can be like you could have a character attack 2 or 3 times in a row before another enemy attacks. This is not that. Every character gets 1 turn per round, or they get 1 attack per turn, assuming that they're not stunned or otherwise inflicted. You're never going to be able to get more than 1 attack in a turn, at least so far that I've seen. Maybe there are certain characters that can, maybe there are abilities, but at least so far it's 1 character attacks per turn. The turn order is determined by your speed stat. Usually you always have 1 character that attacks first unless you get a surprise attack, but basically it's this very standard turn-based combat. What's nice is you get to see the order, so you can see up top. I can not only see the order of this current turn, I also can see the order of the following turn, which is quite nice. It gives me a little bit of time to prepare and think about what my next moves are going to be like. You'll also notice here we have several different options. So you have the classic attack, but what's interesting and unique about the game is not only can you attack, you can boost your attacks. So if you look at next to the on the character's kind of hit points and skill points and so on, there's these dots that are highlighted. So one's highlighted and the rest are blank. These are your kind of boost points. Every time you do a standard action, you get 1 boost point the next turn. If you do a boost attack, you don't get that boost point. And you actually end up consuming those boost points. You can consume up to 3 to get a full boost And each one of those boosts is an extra attack or an extra defend. So you can either do an extra attack, extra defend, or you can boost a warrior skill. Okay? So you can boost your skills, you can boost your standard attacks, you can boost your defense. You can't boost your items, you can't boost your fleas. So this is all very standard stuff, right? You have attack, you have skills, you have items, you have defense. Okay? These skills are learned through jobs that your characters get. I assume in the future you can change jobs. I'm not currently at that stage right now, but there's not enough skills within each job to fill an entire job thing, so I assume that you can kind of switch around. But at least for now, you have your one job with all of your skills within that job you can add, and you get those as a kind of separate currency that you're going to get at the end of the battle. But okay, so you can attack, but you'll notice also these enemies have a shield with a number on it, and then these little indicators beneath. So each enemy has a unique set of vulnerabilities, and a big part of the game is discovering and exploiting the vulnerabilities of your enemies. So here I have two different weapons with my warrior. He can either use a spear or a sword, and some enemies will be weak to spears, some enemies will be weak to swords, some enemies won't be weak to him at all. So he might just have to do regular attacks. When you hit an enemy with an attack that they are weak to, they lose one of their shields, and if that shield gets down to 0, they get stunned for a turn, and your attacks do extra damage. You've weakened them, and now all attacks from all types are going to do extra damage to them. Let's just do a big attack. We'll do a big level slash on all of them, boosting it up. Okay. They're not weak. That's also how you can learn about weaknesses. Once you've unlocked a weakness of a character, you know it forever. Let's boost fire attack here. We're in an ice world. Typically the enemies are going to be weak to fire. Let's do a big fire attack. Okay, so you can see only this front one was weak to it, but it did lower his shield down to 1. Now, she's using also spears. We saw that the sword didn't do anything. Maybe the spears can. We can also try this boosted trade wind and see if any of them are vulnerable to wind. No, but we were able to kill one of the enemies off. Let's try a spear. We haven't hit this guy with a spear yet. Maybe he's vulnerable to spears. We still don't know because we missed. Okay, so he's not vulnerable to spears either. We can try a fire again. This will break the wolf here. Also kill the other unit, which is pretty good. And now because he's been broken, we can just beat him. Hit him with a huge fireball attack and kill him off. Okay. At the end of every combat, depending on how you performed, you're going to get money. That was a lot of levels we just got. You'll get money, experience, and job points. Did we just go somewhere really difficult and get a lot of experience points out of nowhere? All right, cool. That was random. I guess we went to a very difficult section and leveled up a lot. But yeah, so you get experience points, you get money. Your money can be used to buy items, to buy better equipment. And then we got these job points, which then we can use to learn more skills. So we just got a whole bunch. We still need 500 to unlock the next skill. He should have enough now. So we can unlock another skill. And after you unlock a certain amount of skills, you'll see at the bottom we get support skills. So let's get Spearhead here. And now, because we unlock Spearhead, we also get this Summon Strength support skill we can add, which increases the physical attack of the equipped person by 50. Very solid. We can also learn a skill soon-ish with her, with Tressa. But yeah, basically, so you get these job points, you unlock skills, they give you better skills in combat, and then after you get enough of them, you start unlocking passive skills, which can further improve your character's ability to do combat. Everything else is very standard. You have a certain amount of experience points to level up. When you level up, you just get an array of stats added to your character. You don't get to pick any stats. It's just all based on the character, the job, and their level. And then, yeah, then you have your standard equipment. You have the different weapons that each character can equip, and not all characters can equip all weapons. You see each one has a specific highlighted set of weapons they can use. They can all have a shield, they can all have something on their heads, have something on their body, and then they can have 2 accessories. And similar, there's, the classic optimize if you want, just to make it easier. And then there's a whole bunch of different stats. So you have your HP, physical attack, physical defense, elemental attack, elemental defense. You have your skill points. And then you have some standard stuff: accuracy, critical hit, speed, and evasion. One thing I'll note, what's quite nice, is as you get more characters, it does not reduce the amount of experience points or job points you get. So some RPGs, they have this kind of shared effect. So the more characters you have in your party, the less each person gets. It's not the case here. I did some testing early on when I started playing. Every character gets the full value of the experience and job points, which I really appreciate. I don't really like it when games do that. I think it's not a great mechanic. What I don't know yet is what happens to characters that are not in your party. Do they also get experience? This is what I don't know yet. I hope that they do. I like when you can still passively level characters without having them in your party. It reduces this need to grind a lot of characters to make them more, usable. So we'll see. If this is in the game, that's great. If it's not, it's a little irritating. I'm not typically a huge fan of that kind of style. One thing I will note is that the bosses definitely ramp up difficulty compared to the regular enemies, which I think you can kind of expect. I'm just going to quickly flee here. Which I think you can expect in games like this, that the bosses are going to be more difficult. But I was surprised at how much the difficulty ramped up when I was fighting a boss versus a random enemy. What I've also noticed is that the bosses get more difficult depending on how many characters you have and your level. So I think it's actually based off of characters you've unlocked so far. And you can see this in the map here. So if I look at the different chapters on the map, they have a recommended level, currently 9. When I started the game, the recommended level was 1. And then when I got through the first chapter, it went to 5, and the second chapter with the next character went to 7, and now it's up to 9. So every time you get another character, the difficulty scales up a bit, which I like. I think that's a smart move to make sure that it doesn't become boring after the first character. And the nice thing is that you get to pick which one you start with. So you can pick any of the 8 characters to start with, and then you just kind of make your rounds. You can see we're kind of doing this loop here. I started down in this corner in Cobblestone, then I worked my way up to Rippletide, then I went to Atlas Dam, and now I'm here in Flames Grace. So we're kind of just making this loop, collecting the characters on our way back to the beginning, and then you'll see now some characters have level or chapter 2s available, and they have a much higher recommended level. So the expectation is you get all 8 characters, and then you start doing chapter 2s. At least that's what I assume the game wants you to do. So what do I think? I actually kind of like this. The combat, I think, is quite fun. I'm not a huge fan of games that have a lot of random encounters or grinding. It's one of the reasons why, even though I love some of these original RPGs, it's hard to come back to them. There's a lot of just kind of random combats which are not so interesting and just kind of pad the runtime. So far, I think it's been an okay balance. There's not too many random encounters. You can get pretty far. There's some abilities to reduce the random encounters, which I always appreciate. And so I think there's a good balance between how often our story beats versus random encounters. I think it's been a pretty good so far. I don't know if it's going to stay the same through the rest of the game, but at least so far I've been pleased with how it's been. And I like the combat. I think the combat's very interesting. I like this dynamic of being able to boost. So this kind of push-pull of getting a bigger attack now, or waiting and maybe getting an even bigger attack later, or saving them for defense because you're worried about getting killed by an enemy. I like this dynamic. I think it's a little bit more complex than a lot of turn-based combat has. It's still very rock, paper, scissors, which a lot of turn-based games rely on, a similar rock, paper, scissors style. But I think so far it's been dynamic enough that it keeps it interesting. So I think that's probably good enough about the gameplay. Maybe there's some aspects that I missed, but I think that's a pretty good overview. So then the last question, am I going to keep playing? Yeah, I as much as I don't love the story so far, honestly, the kind of nostalgia hit that I've gotten from playing this game in this visual style with this style of combat has really been nice. It's been a nice break from a lot of the more strategic type games I've been playing recently. And kind of going back to, honestly, my original roots. I did grow up a lot with these kind of games. So my backbone is Earthbound and Final Fantasy and, Chrono Trigger, Breath of Fire. So these are what I grew up when I was a kid. So coming back to a game like this has definitely been that shot of nostalgia. I do wish the story was a little bit better. I'm hopeful that it does get better. I'll report at the end whether this is true or not. But even just the gameplay and a little bit what I've done so far, I've quite enjoyed. So there is my kind of recap. If you like this style of turn-based game, I think 5 hours in, I think it's quite good. Again, visuals, fantastic. Music and sound, the music's okay, the sound's okay, voice acting could be improved. Story's not amazing, the characters are kind of one note. And again, not really helped by the writing. But what helps the game is the gameplay, which I think is very dynamic. It's very interesting. I think it has a lot more complexity than the typical turn-based RPG. And yeah, so if you like this, I would highly recommend. Give it a shot. It's on Xbox Game Pass right now for free. If you have Xbox Game Pass, it's also on the Switch, which is originally what it came out on. And I'm enjoying it so far. If you liked this video, if you like this type of content, please give it a like, subscribe. I want to do more of these. I've done a few of them so far. Hope that they're enjoyable for you guys. And with that, again, this is Nate. You can also call me Nathan. Please never call me Nathaniel. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.